Someone had smuggled her a phone and she was posting old photos claiming she was at a better wedding right now. I looked at the posts for maybe 10 seconds, then handed the phone back and told her I wasn't letting it ruin my night. Back in the reception hall, Claire was starting her maid of honor speech. She talked about how real sisters are the ones you choose, not the ones you're born with. She mentioned watching me get stronger and find my voice without ever saying Victoria's name, but everyone knew what she meant. When she finished, the whole room stood up and clapped for like a full minute. Then it was time for parent dances, and David asked if we could dance to that old song he used to sing when I was little. While we danced, he whispered that he was proud of me for standing up for myself and promised he'd never enable anyone to hurt me again. It was the kind of moment I'd always wanted with him, but never thought I'd actually get. The rest of the reception went by in a blur of dancing and cake and people taking pictures. The next morning, Marcus and I were sitting at the airport gate when my phone rang. The prosecutor said Victoria had taken a plea deal that morning for 2 years in prison, plus 5 years probation and mandatory therapy. She'd also have to pay back all the money from the fraud and couldn't contact me ever again. On the plane, I finally looked at my phone and saw all the wedding photos Jasmine had posted. The comments weren't just likes and hearts, but actual memories people were sharing about our friendship and relationship. It hit me that this was what Victoria never had: real connections with people who actually cared. A week later, I was sitting by the pool at our resort when I video called David. He looked different, lighter somehow, and told me he'd been to therapy twice already. He was also looking into support groups for families dealing with personality disorders and had started divorce proceedings. Claire kept texting me updates from home about how Margaret was staying with her sister and posting on Facebook about being a victim, but people who knew the real story were pushing back and sharing their own experiences with Victoria's behavior. 2 weeks after the wedding, when we got home, I found an email from Victoria's public defender with a letter she wanted forwarded to me. I stared at it for maybe 30 seconds, then deleted it without opening it. Marcus said I made the right choice, and that real closure didn't mean I had to keep engaging with her abuse. My first therapy appointment after the honeymoon was mostly about figuring out next steps. The therapist helped me make a plan for dealing with extended family who still supported Victoria, and what to do if Margaret tried to reach out. We also talked about the grief I felt for the sister I never really had, the one I'd always hoped Victoria could be. The next week, I went back to work and found my whole desk covered in cards and flowers from my coworkers who'd heard bits and pieces about what happened. My boss asked me to step into her office and told me she'd been impressed with how I'd handled everything, that the grace under pressure showed real leadership qualities, and they were considering me for the senior designer position that was opening up next month. Marcus and I found a new apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it had good light and no memories of Victoria ever being there. And David came over to help us move, bringing a box of old family photos he'd gone through and pulled out all the ones without Victoria, so I could still have some childhood memories without her face ruining them. The local news station called after the court records went public, wanting an interview about family fraud and identity theft, but I declined and just sent them a written statement about recognizing toxic family patterns early and getting help before things escalate.